When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Few places in Britain have accumulated as much mystery as Rosslyn Chapel. Standing above the wooded valley of the River North Esk, a short distance south from Edinburgh, the chapel has spent centuries attracting visitors who arrive searching for something. Some come for its remarkable architecture. Some come because of stories, linking it to the Knights Templar, the Holy Grail, or hidden treasures buried beneath the earth. Others arrive because they have heard whispers of ghosts, strange encounters, and unexplained experiences. Whatever first draws people to Roslin, many leave with the feeling that they have stepped into a place where history and legend have become impossible to separate.
This is going to be an extremely busy month. I have to watch 104 soccer games, follow the pregame, the postgame, yell useless opinions at the TV. It's a lot. So I knew that when it comes to screening for colon cancer, the choice was clear. The Cologuard Plus test. It can be used at home and can only take 15 minutes, so I can do it during halftime and not miss any action. If you are 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a prescription at Cologuard.com.
The landscape itself helps to create that impression. The modern village of Roslin sits upon ground occupied far longer than most people realise. Beneath the trees and winding paths lie traces of centuries of human activity. The gorge carved by the North Esk cuts deeply through the countryside, creating an unexpectedly wild pocket of woodland, only a few miles from Scotland's capital. The river twists between steep banks, overlooked by ruins, ancient pathways and stone walls that seem to emerge naturally from the landscape itself. Long before Rosslyn Chapel was built, the area was associated with the powerful Sinclair family. The Sinclairs, or St. Clairs, arrived in Scotland during the Norman period and steadily established themselves among the country's most influential noble families. Their fortunes became closely tied to the land around Roslin, and for centuries their stories became inseparable from that of the surrounding valley. The first great chapter of that story is connected, not with the chapel, but with war. In 1303, during the First War of Scottish Independence, the area became the setting for the Battle of Roslin. Contemporary accounts describe the remarkable Scottish victory against English forces, despite overwhelming odds. The details remain debated by historians, but the battle entered local tradition and helped establish Roslin as a place where history seemed larger than life. Long before ghost stories emerged, tales of conflict, heroism and tragedy already clung to the landscape. The Sinclairs continued to strengthen their position throughout the following centuries. Roslin Castle rose above the gorge, occupying one of the most dramatic defensive positions in Scotland. Even in ruin, the castle remains an impressive sight. Standing on its rocky outcrop, surrounded by woodland and overlooking the river below, it is easy to understand why the location was chosen. Today, the surviving walls overlook the valley, much as they have done for centuries. The sounds of water still rise from below. Sunlight filters through the trees before disappearing behind clouds. In winter, mist sometimes settles among the branches and hangs over the gorge for hours at a time. The ruins feel isolated despite their proximity to Edinburgh, Visitors often remark upon the stillness of the place, as though the surrounding woodland has somehow insulated it from the modern world. Yet the structure most people associate with Roslin today was not built as a fortress. In 1446, William Sinclair, the third Prince of Orkney, began construction of what was intended to be a much larger collegiate church. Only part of the original design was ever completed, yet what survives has become one of the most extraordinary buildings in Britain. Rosslyn Chapel is difficult to describe adequately. Almost every surface appears covered in carving. Stone arches bloom with foliage. Biblical scenes emerge from pillars and ceilings. Figures, animals and symbols occupy corners, ledges and recesses. The building rewards close inspection because every glance seems to reveal something overlooked before. Generations of visitors have attempted to understand the meaning behind these carvings. Historians, archaeologists and architects continue to debate certain details. Some interpretations are well supported by evidence. Others belong firmly in the realm of speculation. Together, they have helped create the atmosphere of mystery that now surrounds the chapel. No feature has attracted more attention than the Apprentice Pillar. According to tradition, the master mason responsible for the chapel's construction designed an elaborate pillar, unlike anything previously attempted. Before beginning work, he travelled abroad to study examples that might guide him. While he was away, his apprentice supposedly received a vision showing the completed design. Acting upon that inspiration, the young craftsman carved the pillar himself. When the master returned, he saw what had been achieved. He was overcome not with pride, but with jealousy. In a fit of rage, he struck the apprentice dead. Whether the story is true is impossible to know. Historians generally regard it as legend rather than established fact. Yet the tale became deeply embedded within Roslin's folklore. Visitors still stand before the pillar, listening to guides recount the tragedy. Nearby carvings are said to depict the master mason, the apprentice, and the apprentice's grieving mother. The story endures because it's entirely at home with Roslin. The chapel is filled with reminders of faith, ambition, creativity, and mortality. The Apprentice Pillar seems to embody all of them at once. Beneath the chapel lies another source of fascination. For centuries, rumours circulated about the Sinclair burial vaults below the building. Stories emerged claiming that generations of Sinclairs rested there surrounded by treasure, sacred relics, or objects of immense historical importance. Theories multiplied as the years passed. Some suggested connections to the Knights Templar. Others proposed that priceless religious artifacts had been hidden underground. No credible evidence has ever emerged to support such claims, yet the stories continue to thrive. Part of their appeal lies in the simple fact that the vaults remain inaccessible to the public. Like any hidden place, it invites speculation. Questions naturally fill the spaces where certainty ends. Those questions only intensified during the 20th century. Books, documentaries, and later popular fiction transformed Roslin into an international phenomenon. Claims linking the chapel to secret societies, lost treasures, and ancient conspiracies spread far beyond Scotland. The publication of the Da Vinci Code introduced millions of readers to Rosslyn Chapel, bringing a wave of visitors eager to explore its mysteries for themselves. For local people, however, the stories had always been closer to home. Long before modern theories emerged, the valley surrounding Roslin possessed its own folklore. Many of those stories centered not on hidden treasures, but on strange figures said to appear among the trees and ruins. One of the oldest concerns a spectral woman associated with Rosslyn Castle. Accounts vary, but witnesses have repeatedly described seeing a woman dressed in pale or white clothing standing within the ruins or looking out from empty windows. Some report only a fleeting glimpse. Others claim to have watched the figure for several moments before she vanished. The setting lends itself naturally to such stories. The surviving sections of the castle overlook the gorge in dramatic fashion. Empty window openings frame views of woodland and sky. From certain angles, it is easy to imagine a figure standing motionless among the shadows. One visitor recorded exploring the ruins during a quiet afternoon when movement caught their attention in an upper section of the structure. Looking up, they became convinced that a woman was standing near one of the openings. Nothing seemed unusual at first. The figure appeared so natural that the witness assumed another visitor had entered the ruins ahead of them. Moments later, the woman was gone. The witness searched the immediate area, but found no sign of anyone else. Such experiences are impossible to verify, yet similar reports have appeared, often enough to become part of Roslyn's modern folklore. The figure has become known simply as the White Lady, joining a tradition of pale female apparitions found throughout Britain. Not all of Roslyn's reported apparitions are associated with the castle. The wooded Glen below has its own stories. The paths that wind through Roslyn Glen can feel surprisingly remote. Tall trees rise from steep slopes above the river. Sunlight reaches the forest floor only in broken fragments. Even during daylight, there are places where the atmosphere changes subtly, where conversation quietens and footsteps seem louder than expected. It is along these paths that reports of a dark rider have occasionally surfaced. Descriptions differ, but the figure is generally portrayed as a mounted man dressed in black. Witnesses have reported seeing a horse and rider moving silently between the trees before disappearing from view. One account describes a walker rounding a bend in the path and seeing what appeared to be a rider further ahead. The figure was partially obscured by branches, yet there seemed nothing unusual about the sight. Horse riders occasionally use woodland routes throughout Britain. The witness continued forward. As the distance closed, the rider should have become easier to see. Instead, he vanished. No sound of hooves followed. No movement among the trees suggested a change of direction. The figure had simply ceased to be there. The story became attached to local tradition and gradually evolved into the legend of Roslyn's Black Knight. Whether rooted in misidentification, imagination, or something stranger, the tale fits naturally within a landscape shaped by centuries of conflict and noble families, whose histories stretch deep into Scotland's past. Another legend belongs less to the world of ghosts and more to folklore. Throughout Britain, black dogs occupy a curious place in traditional belief. They appear under many names and forms. Some are regarded as omens, others act as guardians or protectors. Roslyn has its own variation. Stories describe a large black hound roaming parts of the Glen, particularly during hours of darkness. Witnesses occasionally report hearing movements nearby without finding a visible source. Others describe glimpsing an animal between the trees before it disappears in the undergrowth. Unlike many black dog legends, Roslyn's hound is not always portrayed as malevolent. In some accounts it seems more like a guardian of old places, a silent presence belonging to the landscape itself. The oldest and perhaps most intriguing apparition associated with Rosslyn Chapel is a monk. Reports of clerical figures are common in historic religious buildings, yet Roslyn's stories possess an unusual consistency. Witnesses generally describe a robed man moving quietly through the chapel before disappearing. The figure is often seen only briefly, yet those who report the experience frequently remark upon how ordinary he initially appeared. One story concerns a workman carrying out maintenance within the chapel. While occupied with his duties, he noticed a robed figure walking nearby. Nothing about the site immediately seemed remarkable. Historic buildings often contain staff, clergy, and visitors. The man continued working before realizing that something felt wrong. He looked up again. He saw the figure crossing the chapel floor. Moments later, it was gone. There had been no sound of a door opening, no sign of anyone leaving. Only then did the witness begin to question what he had seen. Similar reports have emerged from visitors over the years. The monk is rarely described as frightening. Instead, witnesses often speak of a feeling that the figure belonged there. If the sighting unsettles them, it is because the encounter appears so normal until the moment normality suddenly collapses. The chapel itself has produced other reports. Visitors have occasionally described hearing footsteps when nobody else was present. Others have spoken of voices, whispers, or the fleeting impression that someone is standing nearby. Such experiences may have entirely ordinary explanations. Historic buildings are full of unusual sounds. Acoustics behave unpredictably. Expectations can influence perception. Yet stories continue to accumulate. Each individual account may be small. Together, they contribute to Roslyn's reputation as one of Scotland's most persistently haunted locations. The most dramatic legend associated with Roslyn, however, involves neither monk nor knight. It concerns fire. For generations, local tradition has spoken of a phantom chapel appearing in flames. The story is usually linked to the site before the construction of the present chapel. Accounts vary regarding dates and details, but the central image remains remarkably consistent. Witnesses see a church or chapel engulfed by fire. Flames consume the structure. The glow illuminates the surrounding landscape. Then everything disappears. No burning building remains. No smoke drifts across the valley. Nothing has actually happened. The phenomenon has often been described as a warning or omen. In some versions of the story, the fiery vision appears before significant local events. In others, it simply manifests without explanation. What matters is the image itself. A chapel burning in silence, stone illuminated by impossible flames. A vision suspended between memory and imagination. Whether anyone truly witnessed such a thing is impossible to determine now. The story survives because it captures something essential about Roslin. This is a place where certainty rarely remains unchallenged for long. History is everywhere. Legends flourish in the spaces between established facts. Each generation inherits old stories and adds new ones. Visitors arrive hoping to find answers, and often leave with more questions than they brought. As evening settles across Roslin Glen, and shadows lengthen beneath the trees, the chapel remains where it has stood for nearly 6 centuries. The castle continues to watch over the gorge. The river continues its journey below. Stone carvings endure. Old stories persist. And somewhere among these stories, still passed quietly from one visitor to another, is the tale of a chapel seen burning against the darkness, its flames lighting the valley for a few impossible moments before fading back into the night, leaving only Roslin itself and the enduring sense that some places never surrender all of their secrets. Whether the stories are true is something each visitor must decide for themselves. Rosslyn Chapel has stood for nearly 600 years. During that time, it has witnessed wars, religious change, political upheaval, and the passing of countless generations. Around it, legends have grown as naturally as the trees that fill the Glen below. Some are rooted in history, some belong entirely to folklore. Others exist somewhere between the two. Yet perhaps that is what makes places like Roslin endure the imagination. Not because they provide answers, but because they continue to inspire questions. And if, one quiet evening, you find yourself standing beneath the carved arches of the chapel, walking among the ruins of the castle, or following the woodland paths beside the North Esk, and you catch sight of a robed figure disappearing through the shadows, a pale woman watching from an empty window, or a distant glow where no fire should be, remember that every legend begins with somebody seeing something they could never quite explain. Thank you for listening to Ghost Tales by the Fireside. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider following the podcast on your favourite podcast platform and leave a rating or review. It really does help more people discover the show. You can find more online at ghosttales.co.uk. You can support the podcast and gain access to exclusive content at www.buymeacoffee.com/ghosttales.
This summer, say I do.
I am marrying a stranger.
Like never before.
Am I crazy?
It's a whole new Married at First Sight on Peacock.
Thank God I woke up in love.
With new experts.
My name is Dr. Lisa.
My name's Paul Brunson.
More couples.
This could be the start of a very successful marriage.
And more surprises.
Or maybe not.
Everything is just not enough.
You're a little bit crazy.
I don't know what's gonna happen. I want my fairy tale ending.
Married at First Sight, now streaming. New episodes Thursdays, only on Peacock.